I'm going to do a little bit different video. This one is more about some of the happenings in the world today, but it also still ties in a little bit with the spiritual aspect because everything in life does. It's just, is your focus on Jesus or is it on your problems and the things of the world? And when the problems come, they're designed to get you to seek Jesus, but at the same time, we tend to focus on the problems, and that's where we lose our peace and never really had peace of God. But anyways, this is dealing more with the current events and where I see some things going. Ultimately, it looks really clear like we're in the end of times, and this could be it. It might not be, though. You never know because only Jesus or only God the Father knows the exact time. But everything's lining up like, wow, here we are. We're in a one world order mode and one world of money and one world religion. It's just a matter of them pulling the plug and making it happen. And this virus is a catalyst or the excuse to do some things that basically has destroyed the whole financial picture of the world all in one fell swoop. Most of these countries are begging the IMF for money because they can't make ends meet. And I've read countless stories of cities that are bankrupt. I mean, they don't have the cash flow. And it could be because they're dependent on hotel revenue. Some of them it's because they're dependent on revenue from gambling facilities. And obviously these types of things are completely gone. Or very, very minimal at best. And so they're being destroyed. States are getting killed because the tax revenue is down so much because half the people aren't working. The government on the national level, who knows what their tax revenues are going to be this next year, but I would be surprised if they weren't about half of what they were. And at the same time, they just piled on close to $10 trillion more debt. They almost doubled the debt in the last little bit. On the federal government, it's about about 5 trillion. But the Federal Reserve's been printing money like crazy, and they don't even print money anymore. They just push a button, and electronically there's new money. And they've added well over $5 trillion to their bottom line. And I read about all these pensions that are unfunded that there's no way they can make ends meet because these companies aren't even making enough before this happened to fund the pensions and to fund Social Security and to fund Medicare. And now with half the people not working and revenues are down tremendously, where are they going to come up with the money to fill in that gap? And so that's just the United States. And then you look at the world that's even in worse shape, most of the countries, and it's sad. So it looks very clear like they've made it happen, whether we like it or not. And it's going to happen where, okay, none of these countries can make it. We got the money fund set up and we have the United Nations set up. Let's just simply make it one world order. That's what we want anyways. It's good for you. And it's going to happen. And the first few years, and by the way, the peace part, all these riots and things that are going on, it's going to get a lot worse. And there's a very, very good chance we'll see another world war with China and Russia. And so then that's another reason for him to bring in this one world order and this one person that kind of controls everything and brings peace. And according to the Bible, for the first 3 years, there will be peace. And then it will turn on us. 3.5 years, according to the Bible. We're in for some crazy times, regardless. Even if we make it through this, and let's say there's a big uprising and there's enough people like me and other people that know what's going on, and we fight it and we win. And so we stay status quo. With all the debt in this world with these governments, there's going to be major changes. It's not going to be the same old, same old. It can't be. Most of these companies that went bankrupt, they're not going to be opening their doors again. They can't afford it. They lost it all. And they don't have the money to start it again, and no bank's going to give them the money to start it again. And so the richer are going to get richer and the poor are going to get poorer. Well, middle class is going to go away more because most of those jobs and careers are middle class. It's all by design. They're doing it on purpose. The virus and the riots and all that stuff is just a facade. It's a smokescreen to keep our focus off of what's really going on. And most people don't realize it. And it's been that way forever. Before I became enlightened by Jesus, I remember listening on the TV to Bush Sr. talking about this one world order. I was like, wow, that sounds pretty cool. Maybe we should be a lot less problems in this world. And I was a so-called Catholic Christian and should have known. I'd read the Bible. I knew what it says in prophecy, sort of. I knew, but I didn't know. Because obviously if I knew what I know today, because of what Jesus has taught me, I would have been like, wow, he's talking about end of time stuff. But I didn't know because I didn't understand. So that's part of this video is what's going on in the world, how does it apply to the things of God, but also how does it apply to you? Because here's the other aspect of it. If we don't end up in the end of times and things, and they're going to change, where are you going to be best off? And I look at Mexico, because I pay attention. You know, the U.S. is printing money like crazy. I'm watching the Fed buy up all these stocks and supposedly the reason for it is to support the market, which I think is a bunch of you-know-what as well. Because their real purpose is to control it all and bring in a socialist or a communist state. And they're buying up all the debt of these companies and they're buying up all the stocks of the companies, and pretty soon they're going to own all these companies. And at the same time, they're driving the little guy out of business. So when they own all these big restaurants and they own all the airlines and the airplanes and stuff, who's going to be their competition? Nobody. And they'll control it all. And they'll be able to set their own prices. It's really sad, but it's true. So, where in the world are you going to have the best opportunity? And the funny thing is, you know, in Mexico we have a socialist president, and here in Baja, in Rosarito, we have a socialist mayor. They call him Presidente. And the governor of the state is also socialist. They're all from the same party. But instead of printing money like the U.S. is doing, the president of Mexico decided he's not going to print money, and he's gotten a lot of flack from it. But I'm happy to see that because he's not driving up debt. And the people survive. We go out and we help each other. You know, if I see somebody starving in the street, I'm going to help them. And so it continues. The national debt in Mexico is about 50% of gross domestic product. In the United States, it's hard to calculate because they're printing money so fast at a push of a button, and tax revenues and GDP is going down so much that how do you calculate it? But for sure it's at least around 150% because that's based on last year's GDP. This year, when they find out GDP is down 25, 50%, whatever it's going to be down, it's going to be really high. I bet you it's over 200. It's kind of a point of no return. So where would you rather live? A country that has low wages, a lot of natural resources, very low GDP, debt to GDP, that's in financial position to do very well going forward? Or do you want to live in a country that was the king and overspent, just like every other empire in the history of the world that defaulted and went down, that there's no way they can get it back? That's going to end up as a real socialist government because they're taking all the real assets. China's been doing the same thing for years, by the way. They've been printing money, and when they sell products to the United States and they're running this surplus or this deficit with the United States, and they have all these government money, they're using that real money to go out and buy real assets. Well, it's not real money. It's fake money. It's all fiat money. It's just printed. But people see it as real money that, hey, I got $1, I can spend it. Even here in Mexico, everybody's like, they'd rather have dollars than pesos. And there's good reasons for it. But the point is, China's been taking these extra dollars that they received, and at one time they were the biggest debtor to the United States with, I don't even remember how much it was, but it was trillions of dollars, like 3 trillion or something. And right now they spent it down tremendously because they've been taking that money, they go and they buy gold mines and copper mines and assets all over the world, including real estate in the United States. They're a huge holder of real estate in the United States. So they're buying real assets with the money and using fake money to do it. The Federal Reserve right now, when they're printing this money, it's printed out of nowhere. So they're taking, they don't even have to buy the paper anymore to print it. It's just all digital. They just push a button. So they come up with this money from nothing. They're counterfeiting. It's no different than counterfeiting. And they're going out and buying real assets. They're even putting money through hedge funds and stuff into real estate. So they're owning everything, from real estate, gold, silver, all the companies and their assets. They're going to own it all. Then you got to ask yourself, who owns the Federal Reserve? Because most of us believe it's part of the federal government. After all, it says federal, right? It ain't owned by the federal government. The system is set up and it's not ethical. It's not constitutional. The only people that are able to print money or make money is Congress, according to the Constitution. But that right was given to the Federal Reserve, and the Federal Reserve is owned by big money people. Nobody knows exactly who owns it, but if you really do your research, you come to a conclusion really fast who it is. So here they are. They're in charge of printing our money, the real big money people, for all these years. And now they're buying up all these assets for real cheap. And they don't even care what they're paying for it because it's all fake money anyways. It's easy to print. If you and I could go out and we had an unlimited budget where all we have to do is say, yeah, I have this money here. I'm going to send it to you electronically. And I'm going to buy your bonds of your company. And I'm going to buy your stock. We'd have a good deal going, wouldn't we? That's exactly what's going on. These filthy rich people have completely pulling the wool over our eyes, make us believe that they're doing a real good thing to keep the stock market from crashing and keeping the economy from crashing. And what they're really doing is robbing us all blind. And we're okay with it. Some are. Some of the riots you're seeing is from people that really know what's going on and they don't want nothing to do with it. Most of it is because these same people have put it in the minds of black people that all white people are really bad and all they want to do is kill you and control you and use you just like you did when you were a slave. And that's not true. There are people like that. There are white people like that. But not that many. I don't want to do that. As always, seek first the kingdom of God and its righteousness and the wisdom of God so you have eyes to see what's going on and can decide what you want to do. Because I'll tell you, and I made this point before, God moved me here to Mexico 10 years ago. And when he did, it was on my mind that some bad things are going to be happening in the U.S. And I made the point before in my life, it's always 10 years later that those visions or those things that God showed me come true. And I've been here in Mexico 10 years and they're coming true. And now I see why he moved me here, because of what I just talked about with the GDP, the debt to GDP in Mexico, what it is in the US, how things will transpire. I don't really believe that the end of times is right now. I don't think they're going to usher in the one world government in the next year or something like that. I think it's going to be another 10 years or so. They're going to keep playing this game until they have all the assets. And right now they don't have enough of them. They have to drive all the middle class out of business, just not most of it. and so they'll continue the game. But I also wouldn't be surprised if I was wrong and the New World Government comes into play in another year. For the meantime, I'm just happy I listened to God and obeyed what he said and moved to Mexico. Because things, even with the drug cartel and some of the things going on here, it's still more peaceful than the U.S. The U.S. is in a lot of unrest, and it's a good place to live. People are friendly. There's no prejudice here, by the way. Well, I feel it sometimes. Here I'm a minority. I'm a white guy. I'm in Mexico. And there are times, especially because I'm married to a Mexican woman, that I feel some prejudice where guys are looking at me like, who are you to come in and marry our women type attitude, or come in and do what you're doing in our country. But very seldom. The Mexican people are very friendly, very family orientated, and accepting of us. And in most cases, they appreciate us being here because we bring their standard of living higher. We bring money into the country. So it's very different than us in the U.S. that are pushing the Mexicans out and saying, we don't want you here. It's crazy. Most of it's all a mindset. The Mexican people in the U.S. are extremely important. We don't even know. We just want to use them and abuse them. And that's another problem in the United States. And one of the reasons why we're having riots. Surprising to me that the Mexican gangs in some of these cities aren't part of these riots, and it's just the Black Lives Matters aspect of it, because the Hispanics have been abused big time as well over the years. But to each their own. Again, as always, seek first the kingdom of God and his righteousness, and then everything else will be given to you. Peace.